The palace towers reached into the purple sky like crystal fingers. Doyun Kang stood among the crowd of humans, feeling very small. Everything on this alien world was bigger, brighter, stranger than anything on Earth. The buildings glowed with their own light. The air smelled like copper and flowers mixed together. He was a soldier, but today he wore a formal uniform instead of combat gear. Earth had sent a delegation to the Kalthara sovereignty for trade talks. Doyun was just security, told to stand quietly and look professional. The real work would be done by diplomats who knew how to talk to aliens without causing problems. The Kalthara were elegant and terrifying at the same time. They stood taller than any human, with skin that changed colors like mood rings. Their eyes were large and dark, seeing wavelengths of light that humans could not. They moved with perfect coordination, like dancers who had rehearsed the same routine for thousands of years. The ceremony was taking place in the Grand Hall, a space so large that clouds formed near the ceiling. Millions of Kalthara citizens stood in perfect rows, not a single person out of place. When their queen appeared, they all turned their heads at exactly the same moment. It was beautiful and unsettling. Queen Valora sat on a throne that seemed to be made of frozen light. She wore robes that shifted through every color imaginable. Her presence commanded the entire hall. But Doyun noticed something others might have missed. He had trained as a combat medic before becoming a regular soldier. He knew what pain looked like even when someone tried to hide it. The queen's breathing was wrong. Too shallow, too careful. Near her throne, attendants had positioned strange devices that released a faint mist. Medical equipment, Doyun realized. The most powerful ruler in this part of the galaxy needed help just to breathe her own air. After the ceremony ended, there was a reception. Diplomats mingled with alien officials, exchanging pleasantries through translation devices. Doyun wandered to the edge of the gathering, where a garden opened to the night sky. 3 moons hung overhead, each a different size and color. That was where he found her. A Kalthara woman stood alone among the strange alien plants. She was younger than the queen but had the same regal bearing. Her skin displayed patterns of deep blue and silver, colors that Doyun's translation guide said meant sadness and contemplation. She noticed him and turned. For a moment, neither spoke. Then she said in perfect English, "You are one of the humans. I have been curious about your kind. Corporal Doyun Kang," he introduced himself. "I hope I'm not intruding." "Not at all. I am Narai, 4th daughter of the sovereign matriarch." She gestured to the garden around them. "I come here when the ceremonies become too much. Too many eyes watching, too many expectations." They talked for nearly an hour. Narai asked questions about Earth, about human families, about how people related to each other. Doyun found himself explaining concepts that seemed obvious to him, but were foreign to her. "On Earth, family means something," he said. "You protect your family even when it's difficult. Even when it costs you something." Narai's skin shifted to a color he didn't recognize. "In the sovereignty, we do not have this concept. Family is about bloodline and succession. If a family member becomes a liability, they are removed. It is considered logical, efficient." "That sounds lonely," Doyun said before he could stop himself. She looked at him with those large, dark eyes. "It is, but loneliness is better than weakness. That is what we are taught." Doyun thought of his own sister back on Earth. He thought of his squad, the soldiers he served with who would die for each other without hesitation. "I don't think caring about people is weakness," he said. "I think it's what makes us strong." Narai looked like she wanted to say more, but alarm suddenly blared across the palace grounds. The peaceful garden was shattered by the sound of explosions in the distance. Doyun's soldier instincts kicked in immediately. He grabbed Narai's arm and pulled her toward cover. "What is happening?" she asked, her skin flashing bright red with alarm. "I don't know, but we need to get you somewhere safe." They ran back toward the palace, but armed Kalthara soldiers blocked their path. These soldiers wore different uniforms, their skin showing aggressive battle patterns. One of them pointed a weapon at Narai. "Princess Narai, you are under arrest by order of High Commander Taewon. Come quietly." Doyun stepped between them and Narai. "On whose authority?" The soldier's weapon shifted to point at him. "Human, this does not concern you. Step aside or be eliminated." Before Doyun could respond, more soldiers appeared and surrounded them. Narai placed a hand on his shoulder. "Do not resist," she said quietly. "They will kill you." "This is not your fight." The soldiers took Narai away. Doyen tried to follow, but human security personnel grabbed him and pulled him back. His commanding officer, Commander Haru Lee, appeared and ordered him to stand down. The next few hours were chaos. Doyen learned that a military coup was happening. High Commander Taewan, one of the Queen's top generals, had seized control of key installations. He was broadcasting messages about how the Queen was weak, how her genetic defect made her unfit to rule. The messages included medical scans showing Queen Valora's respiratory system, revealing her condition to the entire empire. It was meant to shame her, to prove she was defective. Worse, Narai had been declared a traitor. Taewan claimed she was too soft, too compassionate to be a proper heir. She had been sentenced to execution in 3 days. The broadcast showed her in a detention cell, drugged and restrained. Doyen watched the broadcast with growing horror. "We have to do something," he said. Commander Lee shook his head. "This is internal Calthera politics. Earth cannot get involved. We've been ordered to evacuate immediately." "But they're going to kill her." "That's not our problem, Corporal. Pack your gear. We leave in 6 hours." Doyen returned to his quarters and stared at his equipment. He thought about Narai standing alone in that garden, talking about loneliness and weakness. He thought about what she had said about Calthera culture removing liabilities. He thought about his own sister, about his squad, about every person he had ever cared about. The human evacuation ships would leave soon. The smart thing, the logical thing, would be to get on board and go home. This was not his fight. Narai was not his responsibility, but he kept seeing her face in his mind. He kept hearing her voice saying that loneliness was better than weakness. 2 hours before the evacuation, Doyen made his decision. He gathered his combat gear, forged authorization codes, and slipped away from the human compound. He left a message for Commander Lee. "I'm sorry, sir, but I can't leave her behind." As he moved through the alien city toward the detention facility, one thought kept repeating in his mind. Maybe caring about people was not weakness. Maybe it was the only thing that really mattered. The detention facility loomed ahead, surrounded by security systems designed to keep anyone from breaking in. Doyen checked his equipment one last time. He had no backup, no support, no logical reason to think he could succeed, but he had decided that some things were worth trying, even when success seemed impossible. He took a deep breath and moved. The detention facility was like a fortress. Tall walls surrounded it, covered with sensors that could detect any movement. Guard towers stood at each corner, automated weapons tracking anything that came close. Doyen watched from a hiding spot across the street, analyzing the security patterns. The Calthera had built their security systems to stop Calthera threats. They expected organized attacks, logical approaches, calculated risks. They did not expect a single human soldier acting on emotion and desperation. Doyen was smaller than the average Calthera, with different heat signatures and movement patterns. The sensors were calibrated for alien physiology, not human. He used this to his advantage, slipping through gaps in the detection grid that would never work for a Calthera infiltrator. He reached the outer wall and placed a small device against it. The device was human technology, crude by Calthera standards but effective. It created a tiny hole in the wall's energy field, just large enough for him to squeeze through. Inside the facility, everything was sterile and automated. Prisoners were kept in stasis fields, floating unconscious in containment cells. The whole place was designed to be efficient, to process prisoners without emotion or waste. Doyen moved through maintenance corridors, following the layout that Dr. Jiwoo Park had sent to his communicator before the evacuation. She was a scientist, not a soldier, but she had hacked into the facility's systems and given him a map. Commander Lee had pretended not to notice when she did it. Every few minutes, Doyen had to hide from patrol drones. His heart pounded so hard he thought the sensors might detect it. Sweat ran down his face. He was terrified, but he kept moving forward. He found Narai's cell on the 3rd level. She floated in a stasis field, her eyes closed, her body relaxed by drugs. The Calthera sedated their condemned prisoners to prevent suicide attempts. It was considered merciful. Doyen worked quickly, connecting his device to the cell's control panel. The Calthera systems were sophisticated, but they relied on users following proper authorization protocols. Doyen's forged codes, created by Dr. Park, tricked the system into thinking he was a facility administrator. The stasis field flickered and disappeared. Narai dropped to the floor and Doyen caught her before she could hit the ground. She was heavier than he expected, her alien physiology denser than human muscle and bone. Her eyes opened slowly, unfocused and confused. What? Where? She blinked several times, trying to clear the drugs from her system. When she finally focused on his face, her skin flashed with colors he could not interpret. Doyen, the human soldier? We need to move, he said, helping her stand. Can you walk? She leaned against him, her legs unsteady. I do not understand. Why are you here? The humans were evacuated. I came back for you. They moved through the corridors together, Narai leaning on Doyen for support. The drugs in her system made her movements clumsy. Behind them, alarms suddenly began to blare. The system had detected the unauthorized cell access. Security doors are closing, Narai said, her mind clearing rapidly. We have perhaps 2 minutes before this entire section is sealed. Doyen picked up his pace, half carrying Narai as they ran. They reached a service elevator just as the doors began to close. Doyen threw himself forward, jamming his arm between the closing doors. The safety system stopped the doors from crushing him and they slid open again. They fell into the elevator together. Doyen hit the button for the cargo level, where Dr. Park had promised a small ship would be waiting. As the elevator descended, Narai stared at him with an expression he could not read. Why did you come back for me, human? She asked. The drugs were wearing off now and her voice grew stronger. My own people have already written me off. My mother, the queen who cannot even inhale properly in her own palace, has accepted my death as necessary. You owe me nothing. You gain nothing. You will likely die here. Why? Doyen met her eyes. Because you should not die alone. Because giving up on you would be giving up on what makes us human. Narai's skin shifted through a dozen colors in rapid succession. She opened her mouth to respond, but the elevator doors opened onto the cargo bay. Armed guards were waiting for them. Doyen reacted on instinct. He pushed Narai behind a cargo container and drew his weapon. The guards opened fire, energy bolts scorching the air where they had been standing seconds before. Stay down, Doyen shouted, returning fire. He was outnumbered and outgunned, but he fought with everything he had. His training took over and muscle memory guided his movements. The fight lasted less than a minute. Doyen used the cargo containers as cover, constantly moving, never staying in one place long enough for the guards to get a clean shot. He took down 3 guards before the others retreated to call for reinforcements. There, Narai pointed to a small ship at the far end of the cargo bay. That vessel, it appears to be fueled and ready. They ran for the ship. Doyen could hear more guards coming, could hear the facility's automated defenses powering up. They reached the ship and threw themselves inside. The controls were alien, but Narai pushed past him and took the pilot's seat. Her hands flew over the interface with practiced skill. I learned to fly when I was young, she explained. Another skill my siblings thought was beneath their dignity. The ship's engines roared to life. The cargo bay doors were closing, trying to trap them inside. Narai pushed the engines to maximum power and the ship shot forward. They scraped through the closing doors with inches to spare, metal screaming against metal. Then they were outside, climbing into the alien sky. Doyen looked at the sensor display and felt his stomach drop. Dozens of Calthera interceptor ships were launching from military bases around the planet. They were all heading straight for them. Our ship is damaged, Narai said, studying the displays. One of the engines is failing. We cannot outrun them. We cannot outfight them. She looked at Doyen with something like wonder in her large eyes. You truly came back for me knowing this would happen, knowing we would likely die. I came back because it was the right thing to do, Doyen said simply. The interceptors were closing fast. Doyen could see weapons powering up on their displays. Then his communicator crackled to life. Commander Lee's voice came through, steady and calm. Corporal, you are going to get yourself killed, but I will be damned if I let you die without backup. Human ships appeared on the sensors, jumping into the system from beyond the planet's orbit. 3 destroyers and a dozen smaller craft, all flying Earth's colors. They moved to intercept the Calthera forces, placing themselves between Doyen's damaged ship and the enemy. Narai stared at the display in disbelief. They came back. Your people came back for both of us. That is what we do, Doyen said, feeling emotion tighten his throat. We do not leave people behind. The space around them erupted into chaos. Energy weapons lit up the darkness as human and Calthera ships exchanged fire. Narai piloted their damaged craft toward the human fleet, dodging debris and weapons fire. They were almost to safety when a much larger fleet appeared on the sensors. Dozens of warships flying the colors of High Commander Taiwan's rebel faction. The commander himself broadcast on all frequencies. Human vessels, you are in violation of sovereignty space. Return the criminal Narai, and your transgression will be overlooked. Refuse, and you will be destroyed. You have 1 minute to decide. Doyen and Nari exchanged glances. The human fleet was hopelessly outnumbered. Surrendering would be the logical choice. It would save hundreds of human lives. Commander Lee's response came after a long pause. We do not abandon our people, Commander. That includes the ones we just rescued. You want her? Come and take her. The rebel fleet powered weapons. The human ships did the same, preparing for a battle they could not win. Doyen held his breath, waiting for the end. Then a third fleet appeared on the sensors, larger than both the others combined. These ships flew the royal colors of the sovereignty, the personal banner of Queen Valora herself. The Queen had arrived. The Queen's flagship was enormous, dwarfing everything else in the system. It gleamed with the accumulated technology of centuries, bristling with weapons and shielded by energy fields that could deflect entire salvos. But everyone watching knew that Queen Valora herself was aboard, and that changed everything. Inside Doyen's damaged ship, he and Narai stared at the displays. 3 fleets now surrounded them. Taiwan's rebels, the human rescue force, and now the Queen's loyalists. The space around the planet had become a powder keg waiting to explode. My mother, Narai whispered. She has not left the homeworld in years. Her condition makes space travel dangerous. Why would she come here? The Queen's voice came over every communication channel, broadcast to all ships in the system. It was strong but strained, each word carefully measured to conserve breath. High Commander Taiwan, you have acted against the Crown. Your justification is my weakness, my genetic flaw that prevents me from breathing properly, even in my own palace. You claim this makes me unfit to rule. Perhaps you are correct, but I will not allow my weakness to become my daughter's death sentence. Narai's skin cycled through colors rapidly, emotions playing across her face. She is defending me. She has never defended me before. A message came through on their ship's private channel. It was from the Queen's flagship, requesting permission to dock with the human command ship. Commander Lee agreed, though his voice carried obvious suspicion. All ships are to stand down, the Queen ordered. I wish to speak with my daughter and the humans who risked everything for her. Doyen's ship was guided to the human flagship by tractor beams. When they landed in the hangar bay, medical teams were waiting. Doyen had injuries he had not even noticed during the fighting. Adrenaline had kept him going, but now exhaustion crashed over him like a wave. Narai helped him to the medical bay, their roles reversed from earlier. You saved my life, she said quietly. I do not know how to repay that debt. You do not owe me anything, Doyen said, wincing as a medic treated a burn on his arm. I did what anyone should do. But anyone would not do it, Narai said. My own people would not do it. Only you did. Before they could continue, Commander Lee appeared. The Queen is here. She wants to see both of you. They followed him to the conference room. Queen Valora was already there, surrounded by medical staff and portable life support equipment. She looked older than she had appeared during the ceremony, the strain of travel evident on her features. But her eyes were sharp and focused. Narai fell to her knees in the traditional Kalthara gesture of respect. Mother, Stand up, Valora said softly. Please, Narai, stand. Narai rose slowly, confusion clear on her face. The Queen studied her for a long moment, then turned her attention to Doyen. You are the human who came back for my daughter, Corporal Doyen Kang. Yes, Your Majesty. Tell me why. What do you gain from this action? Doyen thought carefully about his answer. I do not gain anything, Your Majesty. But I could not lose something either. The belief that every life is worth fighting for. I have lost people before because I was not fast enough, not strong enough. I was not going to lose your daughter if I could help it. Not when I could do something. The Queen was silent for a long time. When she spoke again, her voice was quieter. On your world, would a leader who could not properly breathe her own air be considered fit to rule? We have had leaders with all kinds of limitations, Doyen said. What matters is not whether you can breathe easily. It is whether you have the strength to do what is right even when it is hard. Valora's expression shifted. She looked at her daughter. Narai, I have done you a great disservice. When Taiwan captured you, I accepted it. I thought that was what a strong ruler would do. Cut losses. Move forward. But this human has shown me something I had forgotten. Mother? Narai's voice trembled. Strength is not the absence of weakness. It is what you do despite your weakness. I have ruled for 30 years while struggling to breathe. You have shown compassion in a culture that punishes it. And this human came back for you not despite weakness but because of it. His inability to abandon someone in need became his greatest strength. The Queen stood with effort, her medical staff moving to assist her. She broadcast on all channels again, speaking to the entire system. I am Sovereign Matriarch Valora. Yes, I cannot inhale deeply without pain. Yes, I have hidden this weakness for fear it would be used against me. But I will hide no longer. My daughter is innocent of any crime except being too compassionate. If that is a crime, then I am guilty of the same. She paused, struggling for breath before continuing. High Commander Taewon, you claim my weakness makes me unfit. I claim that a society that cannot accept weakness is itself fundamentally flawed. I am reclaiming my daughter, and I am granting the human forces safe passage. They have committed no crime. They have only shown us what true strength looks like. On the rebel flagship, Taewon listened to the Queen's speech with growing rage. His carefully planned coup was unraveling. The Queen was turning weakness into a rallying cry. The humans had made fools of his security forces, and worst of all, public opinion was shifting. Across the sovereignty, citizens watched the broadcast. Many were shocked by the Queen's admission of her condition, but others felt something they had not expected. Respect, admiration. The Queen was not perfect, but she was strong enough to admit it. Taewon made his decision. If the Queen wanted to embrace weakness, he would show the Empire what strength truly meant. He ordered his fleet to open fire, not on the humans but on the Queen's flagship. The first volley of weapons fire lit up the darkness. Energy bolts slammed into the flagship's shields, making them flare with brilliant light. The Queen's loyalist ships immediately moved to defend her, returning fire. On the human command ship, Commander Lee watched the battle unfold. He turned to his communications officer. Send a message to all human vessels. We came here to save one life. We might as well save a few more while we are at it. All ships engage the rebel forces. Protect the Queen. The human fleet moved into formation alongside the Queen's loyalists. It was an alliance that should not have existed, formed in the heat of battle between species who barely knew each other. Doyun stood at the window of the command ship, watching the battle rage. Narai stood beside him, her skin displaying colors of fear and determination mixed together. Your people did not have to do this, she said. They could have left once I was safe. We do not abandon our allies, Doyun said. Your mother stood up for what was right. Now we stand with her. The battle intensified. Taewon's forces were larger and better equipped, but they were fighting an enemy they did not understand. Human tactics were chaotic and unpredictable. Calthera loyalists, inspired by the Queen's defiance, fought with passion instead of cold efficiency. But the rebels were still winning. Slowly, inevitably, they were overwhelming the combined fleet. Victory for Taewon seemed certain. Then something unexpected happened. Ships began to break away from the rebel formation. First one, then 5, then dozens. Rebel captains were refusing to fire on the Queen. They had heard her speech. They had seen her courage. And they could not bring themselves to kill a ruler who had finally shown them the truth. The tide of battle shifted. What had been a one-sided fight became a chaotic free-for-all as the rebel fleet fractured. Some continued to follow Taewon. Others surrendered. Still others joined the Queen's forces outright. On his flagship, Taewon realized he was losing. Not just the battle, but the war for the sovereignty's future. The Queen had done what he thought impossible. She had turned weakness into strength, and in doing so, had inspired loyalty that his fear could never command. But he was not finished yet. If he could not win through strength of arms, he would win through a single decisive strike. The attack came without warning. Taewon's personal strike force, 50 of the most elite soldiers in the sovereignty, launched from his flagship in stealth pods. They avoided the main battle, slipping through the chaos toward the station where negotiations were being prepared. The Queen had agreed to meet with rebel commanders who wanted to surrender. A neutral station had been chosen, one that civilians used for trade and commerce. It was supposed to be safe ground protected by ancient laws of parley. Taewon did not care about ancient laws. He cared about winning. Inside the station, Doyen stood guard outside the medical wing where Queen Valora was resting. The journey from her flagship had taken a toll on her already fragile health. Dr. Jiwoo Park was with her, along with Calthera physicians, working to stabilize her condition. Narai was in the negotiation chamber with Commander Lee and several rebel officers. They were discussing terms for a ceasefire, trying to end the fighting before more lives were lost. Doyun's instincts warned him something was wrong. The station was too quiet. He activated his communicator. "Commander, I think we should increase security around." Explosions ripped through the station's docking bay. Alarms shrieked. Emergency bulkheads began to close, sealing off sections to prevent decompression. Doyen heard weapons fire echoing through the corridors. "We are under attack," came Lee's voice over the comm. "Elite forces, Calthera military. They are heading for the medical wing." Doyen drew his weapon and positioned himself in front of the medical wing entrance. He was alone. The other security personnel were scattered throughout the station, responding to multiple breach points. He could hear the attackers coming, their footsteps perfectly synchronized. The first soldier appeared around the corner. Doyen fired without hesitation. His shot took the soldier in the shoulder, spinning him around. But more soldiers came behind him, moving with practiced efficiency. Doyen fought like his life depended on it because it did. He used the corridor's narrow space to his advantage, preventing the soldiers from surrounding him. But they were better trained, better equipped, and there were too many of them. He took a hit to his side, an energy bolt that burned through his armor. Pain exploded through his body. He stumbled but forced himself to stay upright. Behind him was the door to the medical wing. Behind that door was the Queen. He could not let them through. Another hit to his leg. He fell to one knee. Blood ran down his side. His vision blurred. The soldiers advanced, weapons raised. Then Narai appeared, having run from the negotiation chamber. She carried a weapon she barely knew how to use, but she stood beside Doyen anyway. "I will not let them pass either," she said. More defenders arrived. Human soldiers, Calthera loyalists, even some of the rebel officers who had been negotiating moments before, choosing in that instant which side of history they wanted to be on. The fighting was brutal. The corridor became a war zone, but Doyen and the others held their ground. They gave the medical team time to seal the doors and activate the wing's emergency shields. Then Taewon himself appeared. He moved through his own soldiers like a storm, his presence commanding absolute authority. He was larger than most Calthera, his skin displaying aggressive red patterns that spoke of rage and determination. "Fall back," he ordered his soldiers. They obeyed instantly, creating a clear space between him and the defenders. Taewon's eyes fixed on Doyen. "You, the human who started all of this. Face me." Doyen struggled to stand. His injuries screamed in protest. Narai tried to support him, but he gently pushed her away. "This is my fight," he said quietly. "Doyen, you are wounded," Narai said desperately. "You cannot win against him." "Winning is not the point," Doyen said. He stepped forward to face Taewon. "The point is that someone has to stand here. Someone has to say no." Taewon studied him with something like curiosity. "You are dying. Your wounds are fatal without immediate treatment. Yet you continue to fight. Why? Because some things are worth dying for," Doyen said simply. "Interesting. Your species is truly irrational." Taewon drew a blade, a weapon designed for ceremonial combat. "I will make this quick. You have shown courage even if it is wasted on a lost cause." They fought. It was not graceful or heroic. Doyen was injured and exhausted, fighting a warrior who had trained for centuries. But he used every trick he knew, every dirty tactic from human warfare. He was smaller, which made him harder to hit. He was desperate, which made him unpredictable. Taewon landed hits that should have ended the fight. Doyen kept getting back up. Blood covered the floor. His vision faded in and out, but he stayed between Taewon and the medical wing door. "Why do you keep fighting?" Taewon demanded, frustrated by this human who would not die. "You cannot win." "Because winning is not the point," Doyen gasped out. "The point is that I do not quit. That is what makes us human. We do not know when to stop fighting for what is right." Behind them, the medical wing doors opened. Dr. Park emerged, her face tired but determined. "The procedure is complete," she announced. "The Queen is stable." Taewon turned toward her, ready to push past Doyen, but Queen Valora herself appeared in the doorway. She moved slowly, still attended by medical equipment, but her bearing was strong. When she spoke, her voice carried through the corridor with absolute authority. "That is enough, Taewon." The High Commander froze. Every Kalthara in the corridor, even his own soldiers, felt the weight of that command. The Queen was not just a political leader. She was the embodiment of their civilization, a living symbol of everything the sovereignty had built. "You wanted to remove me because I cannot breathe properly," Valora continued. "You were right, I cannot. But I can still rule. I can still lead. This human has defended me with his last strength. My daughter stands ready to die beside him, and you, Commander, stand alone." She took a careful breath, the sound audible in the sudden silence. "I am not perfect. My body is flawed, but I have ruled for 30 years despite this flaw. I will continue to rule, not by pretending to be something I am not, but by showing our people that perfection was never the goal. Strength is." Taewon looked at his soldiers. One by one, they were lowering their weapons. They looked uncertain, confused, no longer sure who they were fighting for or why. "The human doctor has treated my condition," Valora said. "She used techniques from Earth combined with our own medicine. The treatment is not a cure, but it helps. It proves that working together, combining our strengths, we can achieve what neither species could alone." She stepped forward, moving past Doyun, who swayed on his feet. She faced Taewon directly. "You have a choice, Commander. Continue this fight and destroy everything we have built. Or kneel and help me build something better, a sovereignty that accepts weakness as part of strength, a civilization that values compassion as much as efficiency." Taewon stood frozen, his blade still in his hand. The entire corridor held its breath. This was the moment that would define the future. Slowly, Taewon lowered his weapon. He looked at Doyun, still standing despite injuries that should have killed him. He looked at Narai, ready to fight for her mother. He looked at his own soldiers, who no longer seemed certain of their cause. Then he knelt. "You have shown strength I did not expect, Matriarch," he said quietly. "If this is the new sovereignty, perhaps it deserves to survive. Perhaps I was wrong." His soldiers followed his lead, kneeling one by one. The rebellion was over, not with violence or death, but with acceptance. Doyun finally allowed himself to collapse. Narai caught him before he hit the ground. Medical personnel rushed forward to treat his wounds. As consciousness faded, he heard the Queen's voice one last time. "Save him. He has earned that much and more." Doyun woke in a medical bay that combined human and Kalthara technology. The walls glowed softly with bioluminescent panels. Strange alien machines monitored his vital signs alongside familiar Earth equipment. His body ached, but the pain was manageable. Someone had done excellent work treating his injuries. Narai sat beside his bed. Her skin displayed colors of relief and joy when she saw his eyes open. "You have been unconscious for 2 days," she said. "The doctors were not certain you would survive. Humans are apparently very fragile compared to Kalthara. Yet somehow we keep surviving anyway," Doyun said with a weak smile. He tried to sit up, but pain lanced through his side. Narai gently pushed him back down. "You need to rest. The fighting is over. Taewon has surrendered. The fleet has stood down. You won." "We won," Doyun corrected. "All of us together." Over the next few weeks, Doyun recovered slowly. He watched from his hospital bed as the Kalthara sovereignty began to transform. The change was not easy or quick, but it was happening. Queen Valora made broadcasts to her people, speaking openly about her condition for the first time. She showed them the medical equipment she needed to survive. She admitted her weakness and explained why hiding it had been wrong. The response was mixed. Many traditional Kalthara were horrified by this display of vulnerability. They believed their queen had shamed herself in the empire. But others, especially younger citizens, felt something different. They felt inspired. A movement began on Kalthara social networks. Citizens started sharing their own hidden weaknesses, physical disabilities, mental health struggles, emotional difficulties that their culture had taught them to suppress. The hashtag translated to something like the Queen in English. Dr. Park visited Doyun often, updating him on the medical collaboration with Kalthara physicians. "They are brilliant but rigid," she explained. "They have spent centuries perfecting techniques, but they never thought to combine different approaches. Human medicine is messier, more experimental. Together we are making breakthroughs neither species could achieve alone." Commander Lee came to see him too. "You have caused a diplomatic incident," he said, but his tone was warm. "Earth's government is still deciding whether to court-martial you or give you a medal. Probably both. I am sorry for the trouble, sir," Doyen said. Lee shook his head. Do not apologize. You did what was right. Sometimes that matters more than following orders. Besides, we now have an alliance with the Calthera sovereignty. Trade agreements, cultural exchanges, military cooperation, all because one stubborn soldier would not leave someone behind. The negotiations for peace took weeks. Taewon and his officers were not executed, as would have been traditional. Instead, they were given a choice: help build the new sovereignty or be exiled. Most chose to stay and help. Taewon himself requested a meeting with Doyen. The guards brought him to the medical bay, and for a long moment the two warriors studied each other. I came to understand why I lost, Taewon said finally. I believed that strength meant the absence of weakness, but you showed me that strength means continuing despite weakness, fighting when you should logically surrender, caring when caring is inefficient. These things do not make sense to me, but I cannot deny their power. I was terrified the entire time, Doyen admitted. Every moment I thought I would fail. But I had to try anyway, fear and courage existing together, another human paradox. Taewon inclined his head respectfully. Perhaps there is wisdom in your irrationality after all. When Doyen was finally well enough to leave the medical bay, Narai was waiting for him. She had spent most of her time over the past weeks either with him or helping her mother with the reforms. My mother wants to see you, Narai said. There is to be a ceremony. The ceremony took place in the same grand hall where Doyen had first seen the queen. But everything felt different now. The perfect rows of citizens were gone, replaced by a more casual gathering. People stood in groups talking and moving freely. Queen Valora sat on her throne, the medical equipment beside her now clearly visible to everyone. She no longer tried to hide it. When she stood to address the assembly, she moved carefully but without shame. Corporal Doyen Kang of Earth, she said. You came back for my daughter when logic said you should abandon her. You defended me when doing so nearly killed you. You have shown our civilization something we had forgotten. That weakness and strength are not opposites. They are partners. She gestured, and attendants brought forward a crystal pendant on a chain. This is the Star of Valor, our highest honor. It has been given only 12 times in our history. You are the first non-Calthera to receive it. Doyen knelt as she placed the pendant around his neck. The crystal was warm against his chest. When he stood, the entire assembly made a gesture he had learned meant deep respect. But the ceremony was not finished. Valora turned to her daughter. Narai, you have also shown great courage. You stood ready to die for what you believed. You have proven that compassion is not weakness but strength. She took a deep breath, the effort visible but controlled. Therefore I name you my heir. Not because you are perfect, but because you understand that perfection is not required, only dedication to doing what is right. Nari's skin flashed through colors too quickly to follow. She was overwhelmed with emotion. She knelt before her mother. I will serve the sovereignty with all my strength and all my weakness, she said formally. The queen smiled. That is all I ask. After the ceremony, there was a reception. Doyen found himself surrounded by Calthera, who wanted to meet the human who had changed their world. Some were curious. Others were skeptical. But all of them treated him with respect. Ambassador Minji found him in the crowd. She was a Calthera diplomat who had spent years studying human culture. You have done something remarkable, she said. You have given my people permission to be imperfect. Do you understand how revolutionary that is? I just did what felt right, Doyen said. Yes, and that is why it worked. Calthera would have analyzed the situation, calculated the risks, and decided rescue was illogical. You simply acted on compassion. Sometimes the irrational choice is the right choice. Later, Doyen stood with Narai on a balcony overlooking the city. The 3 moons were rising, painting the sky in shades of purple and silver. The city below glowed with bioluminescent beauty. What will you do now? Narai asked. Will you return to Earth? Eventually, Doyen said, but not immediately. Commander Lee wants me to help with the cultural exchange program, teaching Calthera soldiers about human tactics, learning from your people in return. Good. I would like you to stay longer. She was quiet for a moment. I never thanked you properly. You saved my life. More than that, you showed me that who I am is not a weakness to be fixed. It is simply who I am. You showed me something too, Doyen said, that doing the right thing even when it is hard is always worth it. I was not sure before. After losing my squad, after failing to save them, I thought maybe I was not strong enough. But you gave me a chance to try again. They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the city change below them. Slowly, carefully, the Calthera sovereignty was learning a new way to exist. It would take time. There would be resistance and setbacks. But the change had begun, and it had started because one human soldier had made a simple choice: to go back, to not give up, to believe that one life was worth fighting for no matter the cost. In the palace, Queen Valora took a deep breath and felt something she had not felt in years. Not ease exactly. She would never breathe easily. But acceptance. And in that acceptance, she found a kind of peace. 6 months passed. The Calthera sovereignty continued its transformation, though not without difficulties. Change was hard, especially for a civilization that had existed the same way for thousands of years. Doyun spent his time working with the Joint Military Training Program. Human soldiers taught Calthera troops about improvisation and creative thinking. In return, Calthera instructors shared their advanced tactics and discipline. The two approaches complemented each other surprisingly well. But the most important changes were happening in Calthera society itself. New laws protected citizens with genetic variations. Mental health services became available for the first time. The concept of compassion began to appear in school curricula. Not everyone supported these changes. Traditional factions organized protests. Some colonies threatened to break away from the sovereignty. The Queen faced opposition from her own government officials who believed she was making the empire weak. The real test came at the Galactic Council Summit. Leaders from dozens of species gathered on a neutral world to discuss trade, security, and diplomatic relations. It was Queen Valora's first major appearance on the galactic stage since the Civil War. Doyun attended as part of the Earth delegation. He watched from the observer section as the Queen entered the council chamber. She moved slowly, visibly using her medical equipment. There was no attempt to hide her condition. Whispers ran through the chamber. Some species looked confused. Others appeared uncomfortable. A few delegates exchanged knowing glances as if the Queen's weakness confirmed their prejudices about the Calthera. Valora took her place at the sovereignty's delegation table. Narai sat beside her, now officially recognized as Crown Princess. The Queen began her prepared speech about trade agreements and mutual defense. Halfway through her third sentence, she stopped. Her breathing had become labored. She clutched at her chest. Medical staff rushed forward with emergency equipment. The chamber erupted in chaos. Some delegates called for a recess. Others began whispering about Calthera instability. A few species representatives smiled, sensing opportunity in the Queen's moment of weakness. Doyun was already moving before he consciously decided to. He pushed through the crowd, ignoring protocol and security. He reached the Calthera delegation table just as Dr. Park arrived from the Earth section. "What can I do?" he asked. Dr. Park was working with the Calthera physicians, adjusting the Queen's medical equipment. "Keep everyone calm. Give us space to work." Doyun turned to face the council chamber. Hundreds of delegates from across the galaxy stared at him. He was just a soldier, not a diplomat. But he had learned something over the past months. Sometimes the truth was more powerful than pretty words. "Yes, the Queen has a medical condition," he said loudly. "Yes, she struggles to breathe. But she is here anyway. She traveled across space knowing this might happen, because she believes in what she is building. If that is not strength, then I do not know what is." An ambassador from a species that looked like giant insects stood up. "The human speaks out of turn, but he speaks truth.
I too have a condition that makes public gatherings difficult.
Yet I am here. Perhaps we have all been too quick to judge what makes a leader fit to serve." More delegates began to speak. Some shared their own struggles. Others talked about leaders from their worlds who had overcome various limitations. The conversation that followed was uncomfortable but necessary. Behind Doyun, Dr. Park and the Calthera physicians stabilized the Queen. Valora's breathing eased. Color returned to her skin. She motioned for them to help her stand. "Thank you, Dr. Park," she said quietly. Then louder, addressing the entire chamber. "I apologize for the disruption. My condition is unpredictable. I could have sent my daughter to represent the sovereignty. It would have been safer, easier. But I chose to come myself because I wanted you all to see the truth." She paused, gathering her strength. The Calthera sovereignty is changing. We are learning that perfection is not possible and not necessary. We are learning to value compassion alongside efficiency. This makes us different from what we were, but it does not make us weak. A delegate from a powerful military species stood. He was known for his harsh views on weakness. Queen Valora, your words are inspiring, but words are easy. How do we know your sovereignty has truly changed? How do we know this is not just political theater? Before the queen could answer, Narai stood. I will answer that. 6 months ago, I was sentenced to execution for being too compassionate. Today, I am crown princess. That is not theater. That is fundamental change. She gestured to Doyen. This human soldier risked his life to save me when my own people had written me off. He showed us something we had forgotten, that the measure of a civilization is not how it treats the strong, but how it treats the weak. The sovereignty now provides medical care for genetic conditions previously ignored. We offer mental health services. We protect citizens who would have been eliminated under the old system. Is this weakness? Or is this the strength to admit we were wrong and choose a better path? The skeptical delegate sat down looking thoughtful. Murmurs of approval ran through parts of the chamber. Not everyone was convinced, but seeds of change had been planted. The summit continued. Trade agreements were negotiated. Security pacts were discussed. But the real achievement was more subtle. The galaxy had seen vulnerability and strength existing together. They had witnessed a queen who could not breathe properly, commanding respect through honesty rather than pretense. That evening, there was a formal dinner for all the delegations. Doyen found himself seated between Ambassador Minji and a delegate from a species he did not recognize. You have caused quite a stir, Corporal, Minji said, speaking out of turn at a Galactic Council session. Very improper. I am sorry if I broke protocol, Doyen said. Minji's skin displayed colors of amusement. I did not say it was wrong. Sometimes proper protocol is exactly the problem. You humans understand this instinctively. You know when rules should be followed and when they should be broken. Later, Doyen stood on a balcony overlooking the summit compound. The alien sky was filled with stars he did not recognize. He thought about how far he had come from that first ceremony where he met Narai. Narai joined him on the balcony. My mother wants to speak with you tomorrow. In private. Is something wrong? No, she wants to thank you properly and to discuss your future. Narai looked out at the stars. You could return to Earth. Your service with the cultural exchange is complete. Or you could stay with the sovereignty. We could use someone who understands both our cultures. I have not decided yet, Doyen admitted. Take your time. But know that you have a place here if you want it. You are not just the human who saved the princess anymore. You are the human who helped change an empire. They stood together in silence, both thinking about the future. The galaxy was changing, slowly, carefully, one person at a time, and it had started with a simple choice: to go back. To not give up. To believe that doing the right thing mattered, even when logic said it was impossible. Somewhere in the compound, Queen Valora sat in her quarters, breathing carefully with the help of her equipment. She thought about the summit, about the surprised faces when she showed her weakness publicly, about the human soldier who had defended her not once but twice now. She took a slow, measured breath. It was still difficult. It would always be difficult. But she was learning to be okay with that. Difficulty did not mean failure. Weakness did not mean worthlessness. Tomorrow she would meet with the human. She would offer him a position as permanent liaison between Earth and the sovereignty. She hoped he would accept. Her empire needed people who understood that true strength came not from perfection, but from the courage to continue despite imperfection. Outside her window, the alien stars shone brightly. And for the first time in years, Valora felt genuinely hopeful. 1 year had passed since Doyen first came back for Princess Narai. He stood at the window of his apartment in the Calthera capital city, watching the morning sun rise over the alien skyline. 3 moons were setting on the opposite horizon, their light fading as the day began. He had accepted Queen Valora's offer to become permanent liaison between Earth and the sovereignty. The work was challenging but rewarding. Every day brought new opportunities to bridge the gap between 2 very different cultures. His apartment was a blend of human and Calthera design. Comfortable furniture from Earth mixed with alien technology that still amazed him. Photos of his family back home sat beside holographic images of his new friends here. A message came through on his communicator. It was from Narai, asking him to meet her at the Royal Gardens. He smiled and sent back confirmation. The gardens had been the place where everything started, where he had first talked with Narai about family, loyalty, and the value of caring for others. It seemed fitting to return there now. Narai was waiting by the same flowering plants where they had met a year ago. She looked different now, more confident. Her skin displayed colors of contentment and purpose. She had grown into her role as crown princess, earning respect through her compassion and dedication. "I wanted to show you something," she said, leading him deeper into the gardens. They walked to a section he had never visited before. There, set into the ground, was a memorial stone. Words were carved into it in both Kalthera script and English. The English read, "In honor of those who come back, who refuse to leave anyone behind, who show us that weakness and strength are not opposites but partners. May we learn from their example." "My mother commissioned it," Narai explained. "She wants future generations to remember what happened. Not just the Civil War, but the lesson behind it." Doyen touched the stone, feeling its cool surface. "I still do not feel like a hero. I was scared the entire time. I almost failed, but you did not fail, and being scared does not make you less brave. It makes you more brave because you acted despite the fear." Narai looked at him seriously. "You changed everything, Doyen. Not just for me, but for the entire sovereignty." They sat together on a bench near the memorial. The garden was peaceful, filled with the sounds of alien birds and the scent of flowers that had no names in any Earth language. "Tell me honestly," Nari said, "do you ever regret it? Coming back for me that night?" Doyen thought about the question carefully. "No, I have never regretted it. Even during the worst moments when I thought I would die, I knew it was the right choice. Some things are worth the risk." "I asked you once why you came back," Narai said quietly. "You said it was because giving up on me would be giving up on what makes you human. I've thought about that answer many times. I finally understand what you meant." "What do you understand?" "That humanity's strength is not in being perfect or logical. It is in caring so much that you will do impossible things for each other. That is a power we Kalthara never recognized because we could not measure it or quantify it." A message came through for both of them. Queen Valora was requesting their presence at the palace. Something important was happening. They found the Queen in her private office, surrounded by displays showing news broadcasts from across the galaxy. Dr. Park was there too, along with Commander Lee and Ambassador Minji. "Something remarkable is happening," Valora said. She gestured to the displays. "Other civilizations are watching what we have done. Some are beginning to question their own assumptions about strength and weakness." The displays showed news reports from dozens of worlds. A military empire was debating whether to provide medical care for injured veterans instead of discarding them. A rigid theocracy was allowing citizens to question doctrine for the first time in centuries. A corporate federation was discussing worker protections. "We did not set out to change the galaxy," Dr. Park said. "We just wanted to save one person. But sometimes one person is all it takes to start something bigger." Commander Lee nodded. "Earth's diplomatic corps has been flooded with requests. Other species want to learn about human culture, about how we approach these concepts of loyalty and compassion. We are no longer seen as primitives. We are seen as teachers. Change is slow," Valora cautioned. "There will be resistance. Some civilizations will reject these ideas entirely, but the conversation has started. That alone is significant." She turned to Doyen. "You asked me once what you had gained by coming back for my daughter. I want to answer that question now. You gained nothing material, no wealth, no power, but you gained something more valuable. You proved that one person's choice to do right can echo across worlds." Doyen felt overwhelmed. "I was just trying to save someone who needed help." "Exactly," the Queen said. "That simplicity is what makes it powerful. You did not calculate odds or measure benefits. You simply saw someone in need and acted. That is what the galaxy is learning from humanity. Sometimes the simplest moral truths are the most profound." Later that evening, there was a gathering at the palace. It was not a formal ceremony, but a celebration. Humans and Kalthera mixed freely, sharing food and stories. Cultural barriers that had seemed insurmountable a year ago now felt manageable. Doyen found Taiwan in the crowd. The former rebel commander had spent the past year working on military reforms, helping to train soldiers in new tactics that combined logic with compassion. "I owe you an apology," Taiwan said. "I believed you were weak. I was wrong. You were doing what you thought was right," Doyen replied. We all were, perhaps, but you were right and I was wrong. That is a difficult thing for a warrior to admit. Taewon's skin displayed colors of respect. Thank you for teaching me that admitting weakness is itself a form of strength. As the celebration continued, Doyeon stepped out onto a balcony. The city spread below him, glowing with bioluminescent light. In the distance, he could see the spaceport where human ships came and went regularly now, carrying diplomats, scientists, artists, and families. Narai joined him. What are you thinking about? About how strange life is. A year ago, I was just a soldier doing security duty. Now I am here, watching two civilizations learn to understand each other. Do you miss Earth? Sometimes. I miss my family, my friends. But I am building something important here. I can visit Earth whenever I want. This is where I am needed right now. Narai's skin displayed warm colors. I am glad you chose to stay. I do not know what I would do without your friendship. You would be fine. You are stronger than you think. Maybe. But I am stronger with you here. That is what you taught us, is it not? That we are stronger together than apart. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the city live and breathe below them. Somewhere in the palace, Queen Valora was taking one of her careful breaths, living with her condition but no longer hiding it. Dr. Park was discussing medical research with Calthera scientists. Commander Lee was planning the next joint military exercise. The galaxy was changing. Not quickly, not easily, but surely. And it had started with a simple question and a simple answer. Why did you come back for me, human? Because giving up on you would be giving up on what makes us human. Doyeon looked at Narai, his friend who had become like family. You know what the best part of all this is? What? We did not change the galaxy by being perfect. We changed it by being honest about our imperfections, by showing that weakness does not disqualify you from doing great things. It just makes you more interesting. Narai laughed, a sound that was becoming more common from her. Only a human would say that being weak makes you interesting. It is true, though. Perfect people are boring. It is our struggles that define us. Inside the palace, the celebration continued. Music played, a fusion of human and Calthera instruments creating something entirely new. People laughed and talked, sharing stories across the barrier of species. This was the future they were building. Not one where everyone was the same, but one where differences were celebrated. Not one where weakness was eliminated, but one where it was accepted as part of the whole. Doyeon thought about the scared soldier who had snuck out of the evacuation a year ago. He had not known if he would succeed. He had only known he had to try, and that simple decision had changed everything. Come on, Narai said, tugging at his arm. My mother wants to make a toast. You should be there for it. They went back inside together. Queen Valora stood at the center of the room, a glass in her hand. She waited for silence, then spoke. A year ago, our civilization faced a choice: continue as we had always been, or dare to become something new. We chose change, and we are better for it. She looked at Doyeon. To the human who came back, to the soldier who showed us that sometimes the illogical choice is the right choice, to Corporal Doyeon Kang, who proved that one person can make all the difference. Everyone raised their glasses. Human and Calthera voices mingled in agreement and celebration. Doyeon felt his face flush with embarrassment, but also with pride. Not pride in himself, but pride in what they had all accomplished together. As the celebration wound down and people began to leave, Doyeon stood once more on the balcony. The 3 moons were rising again, painting the sky in shades of silver and blue. The city below glowed with life and possibility.